All right, let's jump right in. There's a major showdown happening in Minneapolis where a federal judge has just drawn a line in the sand for federal agents. We're talking about protests, power, and a city at a boiling point. So here's the top story. A U.S. federal judge has just put some new, really strict limits on how Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, can handle protesters in the city. So what's actually in this court order? What did the judge say? Let's break down the specifics of this major decision. Okay, so this all came down Friday night. Judge Katherine Menendez issued a ruling, and it's all about limiting the kind of crowd control tactics federal agents are allowed to use against what she specifically called peaceful and unobstructive protesters. That phrase is key. It's the legal line she's trying to draw. And if you look at the details, they are incredibly specific. The order says agents can't just arrest or use pepper spray on demonstrators who aren't actively getting in their way. It also creates protections for people like journalists and legal observers. It even says when agents can stop a vehicle, and only if they have clear, reasonable suspicion. And get this wasn't just some brief note. The judge's ruling is a massive 83-page document. That length tells you something. It means she went into painstaking detail, laying out legal arguments to build this very solid wall around what ICE agents can and cannot do. So you might be asking, why is this happening right now? To really get it, we need to look at the events that led up to this moment. The tension in the city has been building since January 7th. That's when an ICE agent fatally shot a resident named Renee Good. That event sparked protests all through the month, which then led to a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is what ended with the judge's order on Friday. As you can imagine, the reaction to this ruling has been completely split. It's basically created a head-on collision between the federal government and Minnesota state officials. Just look at how the two sides are talking about this. The federal government says its agents are just protecting themselves from, quote, dangerous rioters. But state officials, they're condemning ICE's operations. The White House is calling the judge's ruling an absurd left-wing narrative, while the governor is firing back that the federal investigation is an authoritarian tactic. They are worlds apart. Here is the direct statement from the White House. Spokesperson Abigail Jackson said, "This absurd ruling embraces a dishonest left-wing narrative. Federal agents have acted lawfully to protect themselves." And on the complete other side, you've got Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who says, weaponizing the justice system against your opponents is an authoritarian tactic. And this whole thing has escalated. The U.S. Justice Department has now launched an investigation into Governor Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey. They're looking into whether they tried to impede federal immigration operations. So, with protests planned for the weekend, all of this has put the entire city of Minneapolis on high alert. Let's look at what's happening on the ground. Okay, so at the state level, the Minnesota National Guard is on standby. They're ready to jump in and help local law enforcement if they need it. But the federal government is also making moves. A U.S. defense official confirmed that 1,500 active-duty soldiers are now on standby, just in case they need to be deployed to the city. Now, these troops are from the 11th Airborne Division, based way up in Alaska. But it's important to note, while they are ready to go, the final decision to actually send them into Minneapolis has not been made yet. So, what happens now? This whole situation is changing by the hour, but there are three huge things we need to be watching. First, how will federal agents actually follow the judge's new rules during these protests? Second, what's going to come out of that Justice Department investigation into Minnesota's top officials? And finally, the big one. Will the White House actually make the call to deploy active-duty soldiers on American soil? All of this really boils down to a fundamental question about the balance of power here in the U.S. And it's a question that Minneapolis is having to answer in real time. When you have a federal judge, a governor, and the White House all at odds, who actually gets the final say?